Alright, in this video we're going to take a look at how Tiger's left shoulder affects his hand path and how his hand path affects the arc of his golf swing. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I know there's a lot going on your screen, but I think the best way to be thorough is to be thorough. So we're going to take a look at a trace of Tiger's left shoulder, and what I use to mark that. This is not 1000% perfect, but there's a gray seam right there on his shirt. It's actually a very pointed tip, so I use that approximate location at address, as you can see here. Then we're going to trace backswing in yellow. So we're going to see the lead shoulder works away from the target and down towards the ground. Okay, so that'd be the end of the backswing. So left shoulder's gone down some amount, and obviously to his right. Now in transition, we've got red dots for the lead shoulder going back towards the target. And the interesting thing for some of you may be to see, because you may have only seen this for the first time, how the left shoulder actually gets lower than it was at the top of the backswing, and how long it drives forward while being lower than it was at the top of the swing. So approximately here, it started to bottom out on its arc of its own, and then it slowly starts to elevate, but you can tell hopefully by these smaller dots it's still moving forward. And if we can try to get, I don't think we'll be able to get exact impact, unfortunately, so we'll have to use that. Dot is approximately very close to the same elevation it was at address, or perhaps a very tiny bit higher than it was. Okay. Then the continued trace is obviously lead shoulders working higher and away from the target. Okay, so that's how his shoulders are moving. Now let's see how his hands are moving. So it's hidden here, but I drew a line on the top of his glove. Okay, so that's blue trace in the backswing. Last point there. Now yellow begins the downswing trace of the top of his glove. And I stop there because there's no point in going further than that. And the glove is hidden behind his right hand here. So what we take from this, okay, the hand path is more towards the target than it was on the backswing. And the radius is tighter. Now we can trace green, golf club, going back, red, coming down. And by the way, what I used was the ferrule on the shaft because it was a little bit easier to see, at least for me. So there's a general trace. Obviously we can't trace it perfectly because the golf bag is in the way, but most of it you'll see the arc of the club and how the shaft behaved. Now the very interesting thing is now red is picking up the downswing trace of the ferrule on the shaft. Get that frame, that's our next frame. So what could we conclude from this? Well, obviously the arc on the way back towards the ball is tighter. most likely caused by the arc of the hand path being tighter. The radius is tighter, and that would lead you to possibly believe that that's caused by the left shoulder moving the way we've seen here. So I think a good learning point for a lot of golfers is that when you start your downswing, don't pop your left shoulder straight up in the air. It's a good way to move the path more in to out, but that has some distinct disadvantages on its own. And of course, this is tracing one of the best players who's ever lived. How his shoulder affected his hand path, how his hand path affected the arc of the club, and that would be something you could practice obviously in front of a mirror. Go to the top of your swing, best you can, look at your left shoulder while you're watching yourself, slowly transition and make sure that left shoulder is staying down for a while until your shoulders level out. So let's take a look at that. When do his shoulders appear to level out approximately? And I'm going to say that's fairly level with each other. Okay, so that'd be when the hands are actually just approaching the right thigh and halfway up between the right knee and the belt. Okay, so that's how you could practice that. Obviously slow, get the feels, and then you should be striking the ball hopefully a lot better. And that's what we want to share from this video.